I didn't steal anything, Logan. You're overthinking this. That was the first moment something inside me didn't sit right. I looked at Adrian Cole longer than I should have, trying to read his face, but he looked too calm, like he had already decided what I would think before I even spoke. I didn't say you stole anything, I replied quietly, watching him walk into my apartment like it belonged to him. I just asked why Charlotte invited you instead of me. He grabbed a drink from my fridge, leaned against the counter and shrugged like it meant nothing. Maybe she thought I could help. You've been busy. Busy. That word echoed in my head. I forced a small smile, but it didn't feel real. Yeah, maybe. He chuckled and pointed at me. You've got everything right now, man. Good job, good life, perfect girl. Stop thinking like you're about to lose it. I nodded, but something in me didn't agree. Adrian wasn't just a friend. He was the one person I never questioned. And that's exactly why this feeling scared me. Did she text you? He asked casually, like it didn't matter. I picked up my phone even though I already knew the answer. No, he shrugged again. She's probably busy. I didn't respond right away. Charlotte always texted. Even on her worst days, she never disappeared like this. She doesn't just go quiet, I said slowly. He smirked, almost amused. You worry too much. I looked at him. Do I? He didn't answer directly, just changed the topic. You ready for tonight? Kingsley Estate. Big night. Something about the way he said it felt off, like it mattered more to him than it should. You've been there a lot lately, I said. He held my gaze for a second, then smiled. That bothering you? I shook my head. No. Just noticing. He stepped closer, lowering his voice slightly. Then don't notice too much. That line stayed with me longer than anything else he said. The Kingsley Estate was full of light, music, and people pretending to be perfect. I walked in with him, but it didn't feel like we arrived together. It felt like he belonged there and I was just catching up. Logan, her voice reached me before I saw her. Charlotte Kingsley stood a few steps away, smiling, but not the way she used to. I walked toward her, searching her face for something familiar. You're late, she said softly. Work, I replied. She nodded, but her eyes shifted past me. I didn't need to turn to know who she was looking at. Adrian stepped forward easily. Good to see you again. Again. I caught that word instantly. She smiled at him a little too naturally. You too. I stood there between them, feeling something tighten in my chest. Didn't know you two met earlier, I said. She hesitated just for a second. We just talked about some things. Business, Adrian added smoothly. I looked at her, waiting for her to say something else, to explain, to correct him, but she didn't. She just looked away. Later, I found her near the balcony, away from everyone else. You've been different, I said without wasting time. She looked at me, slightly confused. Different how? I stepped closer. You tell me. Less calls. Less texts. And now, him. Her expression changed, but she tried to stay calm. You're making it bigger than it is. I shook my head. Then make it smaller. Explain it. She didn't answer immediately, and that silence hit harder than any words could. Do you trust me? She asked finally. I didn't hesitate. I do. She nodded slowly. Then stop looking for problems. I stared at her, trying to believe that, trying to hold on to what we had. I'm not looking for problems, I said quietly. I'm just noticing changes. She looked away again, and that was enough for me to know something wasn't right. Not broken yet, but not whole anymore either. When I stepped outside later, Adrian was already waiting near his car, scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world bothered him. You ready? He asked without looking up. Yeah. I stood there for a moment, then asked the one thing I couldn't ignore anymore. You and her, there's nothing going on, right? He finally looked at me. For a second he said nothing. Then he smiled, relaxed, confident. Relax, Logan. She's your girl. The words sounded right, but the feeling didn't match. I nodded anyway and got into the car. No music. No jokes. Just silence. That wasn't normal for us. Nothing felt normal anymore. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at my phone, waiting for something that never came. No message. No call. Nothing. I told myself everything was fine, that I was just tired, that I was overthinking. But deep down, there was a quiet voice I couldn't ignore anymore. Something had already started to change. And I was the only one pretending it hadn't. I didn't know how to tell you. Those were the words that ended everything. I stood there, staring at Charlotte Kingsley, trying to understand what she had just said, but my mind refused to accept it. Say it again, I told her, my voice lower than I expected. She looked at me like I was already gone. I'm engaged, Logan. My chest tightened. To who? Even though I already knew. Even though something inside me had been preparing for this moment. She didn't answer immediately. That silence was enough. I let out a dry laugh. Say his name. She swallowed. Adrian. I nodded slowly, like it made sense, like I wasn't breaking apart right there. Adrian Cole. Saying his full name felt heavy, like I was forcing reality into place. I stepped back. Since when? She looked down. It's recent. I shook my head. No. Don't do that. Don't lie again. Since when? Logan, she whispered, but I cut her off. Since when? She closed her eyes for a second. A few months. I stared at her. A few months. My voice rose without control. So all this time, when you were with me, when you said you loved me, I couldn't finish the sentence. She stepped closer. It wasn't like that. I laughed again, louder this time. Then explain it. Please. I'd love to hear how this wasn't exactly what it looks like. She hesitated, and that hesitation said more than anything else. Things changed, she said quietly. Changed? I repeated. Or you changed? She didn't answer. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to stay calm. And him? I asked. When did he decide to step in? Or was he always there? Her silence confirmed everything. I nodded slowly. Of course he was. I turned and walked out without thinking, but I didn't get far. Logan. His voice stopped me. I turned back and saw Adrian walking toward me like nothing had happened. Like this was just another normal conversation. We need to talk, he said. I looked at him, really looked this time, and something inside me finally snapped into place. You need to talk, I corrected. I don't need anything from you. He sighed like I was being difficult. Don't make this worse than it already is. I laughed under my breath. Worse? I stepped closer. You're engaged to the woman I love, and you're telling me not to make it worse? He didn't react. That calm expression was still there. It wasn't planned like that, he said. I stared at him. That's the line you're going with? He held my gaze. Feelings change. I nodded slowly. Yeah, they do. But loyalty doesn't. That's a choice. Charlotte stepped between us. Stop, she said, her voice shaking. This isn't helping. I looked at her. Helping who? She didn't answer. I exhaled sharply. Tell me one thing, I said. Did either of you think about me for even a second? Adrian looked away. Charlotte's eyes filled with something I didn't want to see. We didn't want to hurt you, she said softly. I smiled, but there was nothing behind it. That's funny. Because this feels very intentional. She shook her head. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Then help me understand, I replied instantly. Because right now it looks like you chose him. She hesitated again, and that hesitation gave me my answer. I nodded slowly. You did. Everything after that felt quiet. Not peaceful. Just empty. I looked at both of them standing there together, and for the first time I saw them clearly. Not as my girlfriend. Not as my best friend. Just two people who made a decision without me. You know what hurts the most? I said, my voice steady now. It's not that you're together. It's that I didn't see it coming. Adrian frowned slightly. We didn't plan to tell you like this. I shook my head. No. You planned everything else, though? Charlotte whispered my name again, but I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I stepped back, putting distance between us. Congratulations, I said quietly. I hope it was worth it. Neither of them answered. And that silence said everything I needed to know. I called you 10 times, Logan. Where are you? Noah Hayes' voice hit me through the phone, sharp with worry, but I just stared at the screen before answering. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I said I'm fine. Pause. Then softer, you saw them, didn't you? I exhaled slowly. Yeah. And? I let out a dry laugh. And they're engaged. That's it. Logan, don't, I cut him off. Don't say anything that sounds like sympathy. I'm your brother. I'm not going anywhere. I am. The words slipped out before I could stop them. What does that mean? It means stop calling. I need space. That's not how this works. It is now. I ended the call and dropped the phone on the table, the silence in the room getting heavier by the second. I knew I had just pushed away the only person still on my side, but I didn't care. Or maybe I did, but not enough to fix it. Everything inside me felt empty, like something had been ripped out and there was nothing left to hold on to. Logan opened the door. I ignored it. Logan, I know you're inside. The knocking got harder. Fine, I'll wait, the voice said, calmer now. I knew that voice. Grace Bennett. I finally opened the door. What do you want? She walked in without asking. You look terrible. Thanks. I'm serious. You haven't been sleeping. I didn't invite you here. You didn't have to. Someone needed to come. I leaned against the wall. If you're here to talk about them, leave. I'm here to talk about you. I'm fine. She shook her head. Stop saying that. You're not. I didn't respond. She stepped closer. This didn't start recently. My eyes lifted. What? Adrian, he's been getting close to her for months. I frowned. That doesn't mean anything. It does, she said quietly. He didn't just fall into her life. He placed himself there. Meetings, introductions, her family, he made sure he was always around. I felt something shift inside me. How do you know this? Because I saw it. And because you didn't. I looked away, my jaw tightening. So what, I was just blind? No, she said. You trusted him. Same thing. No, she replied firmly. You believed in him. That's not weakness. I didn't answer because I didn't know what to believe anymore. After she left, the apartment felt colder. I sat there, staring at nothing, replaying everything in my head. Every time Adrian showed up out of nowhere. Every time Charlotte avoided a question. Every time I ignored that feeling in my chest. Feelings change, his voice echoed again, and I shook my head slowly. No, this wasn't feelings. This was planned. Step by step. He moved into my place without me even noticing. You didn't just take her, I muttered. You replaced me. The realization hit harder than anything else. I wasn't just betrayed. I was pushed out. I stood up and paced the room, my thoughts getting sharper. And I let it happen. That part hurt the most. I trusted him without question. I trusted her without doubt. And they used that. I stopped in front of the window and looked at my reflection. Is this who I am now? I asked quietly. A guy who got left behind without even seeing it coming. A guy who lost everything in one night. I clenched my fist. No. I'm done, I said under my breath, the words feeling heavier this time. Done waiting. Done pretending. Done being the version of myself that could be ignored and replaced. I picked up my phone again, but not to check messages. I wasn't expecting anything from anyone anymore. Instead, I opened a blank note and stared at it for a second before typing. Start again. I read it once, then added another line. No excuses. No looking back. I leaned back in the chair, staring at those words like they meant something bigger than just a sentence. For the first time since everything broke, I felt something shift inside me. Not happiness. Not peace. Something stronger. Control. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about myself. About what I had to become so this never happened again. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes for a moment. This isn't the end, I said quietly. And for the first time that night, I believed it. I heard you walked away from everything. I looked up slowly at the man sitting across from me. Victor Langston didn't waste words, and I liked that about him already. I didn't walk away, I replied. I just stopped staying where I wasn't wanted. He studied me for a moment like he was trying to decide something. That usually means the same thing. I leaned back slightly. Maybe. But I'm not here to explain my past. He nodded once. Good. I'm not interested in it. That answer caught my attention. Most people wanted the story. The drama. The reason. You didn't? Then why am I here? I asked. He rested his hands on the table. Because I've been watching you. I raised an eyebrow. That sounds worse than it should. A small smirk appeared on his face. Your work. Your decisions. Even your silence after everything collapsed. Most people make noise when they fall. You didn't. I held his gaze. Noise doesn't fix anything. Exactly, he said. That's why you're sitting here. I don't need sympathy, I said. And I'm not looking for help. He shook his head slightly. Good. Because I don't offer either. That made me sit up straighter. Then what do you offer? He leaned forward just a little. Opportunity. But only if you're willing to rebuild from the ground. I let out a quiet breath. I already lost everything. Starting from zero doesn't scare me. It should, he replied calmly. Because this time you won't have excuses. No distractions. No emotional decisions. I didn't respond immediately. He was right. Before, I had been driven by feelings. By people. By trust. What do you want from me? I asked. Discipline, he said. Consistency. And the ability to listen more than you speak. I nodded slowly. And in return? He looked at me without hesitation. I show you how to build something no one can take from you. That was the first time in days I felt something real again. Not anger. Not pain. Something sharper. Focus. When do we start? I asked. You already did, he replied. The next few weeks didn't feel like progress. They felt like pressure. You're late, Victor said one morning without even looking at me. 2 minutes, I replied. 2 minutes is enough to lose an opportunity, he said calmly. I tightened my jaw. Won't happen again. It shouldn't have happened at all. I didn't argue. I just nodded and got to work. Every day was the same. Early mornings. Long hours. No distractions. No unnecessary conversations. Stop reacting, he told me once while reviewing my work. Think before you move. I looked at him. I am thinking. He shook his head slightly. No, you're still feeling. There's a difference. That line stayed with me. I started noticing it. Every decision I made, every move I considered, there was always a trace of emotion behind it. Remove that, he said another day. Emotion clouds judgment. I looked at him carefully. And what replaces it? Control, he answered. Simple. Direct. No hesitation. I started applying it. Slowly. Step by step. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting to what happened to me. I was deciding what happened next. Do you still think about them? Victor asked one evening without looking up from his desk. The question came out of nowhere, but I didn't hesitate. No, he raised an eyebrow slightly. Not even once? I shook my head. Thinking about them doesn't change anything. He watched me for a second. Good. I leaned against the table. I don't want revenge. He nodded. That's not what I'm teaching you. Then what is this? I asked. He stood up slowly. This is power. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. I let those words settle. Power. Not loud. Not emotional. Just present. And when do I know I have it? I asked. He gave a small smile. When they notice you without you needing to remind them. I looked away for a moment thinking about that. Not because I cared about them anymore, but because I understood what he meant. It wasn't about showing them anything. It was about becoming something they couldn't ignore. That night, I walked out of the building alone, the city lights reflecting off the glass around me. Everything felt different. Not easier. Just clearer. I pulled out my phone for a second, staring at the blank screen. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. And for once, it didn't bother me. You're not that person anymore, I said quietly to myself. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and kept walking. I wasn't chasing anything. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was building something. Something steady. Something real. Something mine. I stopped for a second and looked at my reflection in the glass again. Same face. Same person. But not the same mindset. This time, I said under my breath, no one gets close enough to break it. I turned and walked forward without looking back. Because I finally understood something I should have known from the beginning. The strongest moves don't make noise. They just change everything. I didn't expect you to show up here, Grace Bennett said as she stepped closer, but I didn't turn right away because I already knew it was her. I didn't come for you, I replied calmly, keeping my eyes on the glass wall in front of me. Of course you didn't, she said. You don't come for anyone anymore. I let that sit before speaking again. You didn't answer my message. She crossed her arms slightly. I was deciding if you were ready to hear what I know. I turned then steady. And? She studied my face. You look different. I didn't react. Say what you came to say. She took a breath. This was never about love. I nodded once. I know. She shook her head. No, you don't. Adrian didn't just fall for her. He planned everything. I didn't interrupt. He studied her life, her family, her routines. He placed himself where you used to be. I looked away for a second, then back at her. So he replaced me. Not suddenly, she said quietly. Slowly. While you still trusted him. I let out a quiet breath. And she just let it happen? Grace hesitated. At first she didn't. She cared about you. I caught that word. Cared. She didn't correct herself. Then what changed? I asked. He gave her something you didn't. Say it clearly, I said. Security, she replied. Not emotional. Practical. In her world, that matters more. I nodded slowly. So this wasn't love. It was a decision. Yes, she said. And you were just in the way. The words landed, but they didn't break me. Not anymore. And him? I asked. What did he get? She looked at me. Power. X. Everything that comes with her name. I gave a small nod. That sounds like him. You're taking this too calmly, Grace said after a moment, and I almost smiled. I'm not calm, I replied. I'm just done reacting. She stepped closer. There's more. I looked at her. There's always more. She lowered her voice slightly. She's not happy. I didn't respond immediately. That's not my problem, I said. I didn't say it was, she replied, but you should know. Why? I asked. Because she's starting to see the difference, Grace said, between what you were and what he is. I shook my head slightly. She already made her choice. And if she regrets it? She asked. I looked at her steady. Regret doesn't change decisions. She watched me carefully. You really moved on. No, I corrected. I moved forward. She didn't argue with that. Later that evening, I stood across the street, watching through the glass without stepping inside. I didn't belong there anymore, and I didn't need to. They're inside, Grace said quietly beside me, but I had already seen them. Adrian Cole stood confident, relaxed, like everything was exactly where he wanted it. Charlotte Kingsley sat next to him, smiling just enough to look fine but not enough to feel real. She doesn't look happy, Grace said. I know, I replied. Does that matter to you? She asked. I stayed silent for a second before answering. It used to. She looked at me. And now? I kept my eyes on them. Now I understand something I didn't before. What? She asked. People don't lose what they value, I said quietly. They lose what they think they can replace. Grace didn't respond, and neither did I. There was nothing left to say about them. You're not going to talk to her? Grace asked as I turned away. No, why not? Because there's nothing left to fix. She walked beside me. She might try to talk to you. I shrugged slightly. That's her choice. And what will you do? She asked. I stopped for a second, then looked ahead. I won't stop her, I said, but I won't go back either. She nodded slowly. You've changed. I had to, I replied. As I walked away, everything felt clearer than before. Not lighter, not easier, just clearer. I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies. I was building something of my own, step by step, without noise, without emotion controlling me. For the first time, I understood what real strength felt like. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to prove anything. It just existed. And slowly, without me doing anything, the truth I had learned was already starting to break everything they thought they had built. I didn't expect to see your name here. I glanced at the guest list tablet in my hand, then at the man standing beside me. Neither did I replied calmly, handing it back. He gave a short smile. Victor doesn't bring people into this circle unless they matter. I didn't respond to that. I didn't need to. I could already feel it, the difference, the way people looked at me now. Not with curiosity. Not with doubt. With recognition. Logan Hayes, right? Someone called out behind me. I turned slightly. That's me. He extended his hand. I've heard a lot about you. I shook it briefly. Only the useful parts, I hope. He laughed. The impressive parts. I gave a small nod and moved on. I wasn't here to impress anyone. I was here because I belonged. And that realization felt steady. Not exciting. Not overwhelming. Just right. You're adjusting quickly, Victor Langston said as he stepped beside me. I didn't look at him. I'm not adjusting. I'm building. He gave a quiet, approving nod. Good answer. I glanced at him. This is your world. I'm just learning how it works. No, he corrected. You're learning how to control it. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I watched the room. The conversations. The movements. The quiet power in simple decisions. They're all watching you, Victor added. I gave a slight smile. Let them. He looked at me for a moment. You don't seem surprised. I stopped being surprised a while ago, I said. Now I just pay attention. He nodded once. That's why you're here. Across the room I felt it before I saw it. That shift in energy. That familiar presence. I didn't turn right away. I didn't need to. You're calm, Victor said quietly. I am. Good, he replied, then walked away. I finally looked. Adrian Cole stood near the center talking, but not as confidently as before. His posture was the same, his expression controlled, but something was different. Tighter. Less certain. His eyes moved around the room more than usual, until they stopped on me. There it was. Recognition. Then something else. I held his gaze for a second, then looked away like it didn't matter. Because it didn't? So it's true, a voice said behind me. I turned slightly. Charlotte Kingsley stood there, her expression caught between surprise and something deeper. You changed, she said. I looked at her calmly. People do. She took a small step closer. You didn't even try to reach out. I met her eyes. There was nothing to reach for. She hesitated. Logan, I cut her off gently. You made your decision. I respected it. Her lips parted slightly but no words came out. You look different, she finally said. I gave a small nod. So do you. She looked down for a second then back at me. Are you happy? The question felt strange. Not because of what it meant but because of who it came from. I'm focused, I replied. She held my gaze. That's not the same thing. It is for me, I said. She went quiet again. I could see it clearly now. The hesitation. The uncertainty. The things she didn't have words for. He's been asking about you, she said after a moment. I raised an eyebrow slightly. Has he? Yes, she replied. He didn't expect. She stopped. Didn't expect what? I asked. She exhaled slowly. This. I gave a faint smile. Neither did I. She looked like she wanted to say more but I stepped back slightly. Not to avoid her. Just to keep the distance where it belonged. Take care of yourself, Charlotte, I said calmly. She nodded, but her expression didn't change. As I walked away I could feel his eyes on me again. I didn't turn. I didn't react. But I knew. And a few moments later I heard his voice. Logan. I stopped then turned slowly. Adrian stood there, his expression controlled but not as effortless as before. You've been busy, he said. I looked at him. So have you. He gave a short smile. Didn't expect to see you here. You said that already, I replied. His smile faded slightly. You've changed. People keep saying that, I said. He stepped closer. You disappeared. I held his gaze. No. I just stopped being available. That landed. I could see it. You could have reached out, he said. I almost laughed. For what? He didn't answer immediately. Things didn't have to go the way they did. I tilted my head slightly. But they did. Silence settled between us for a second. I hope you're doing well, he finally said. I nodded once. I am. He studied my face like he was trying to find something that wasn't there anymore. You don't seem affected. I looked at him calmly. I was. Just not anymore. His jaw tightened slightly. That's good, he said, but it didn't sound convincing. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because the shift was already clear. He could feel it. The control slipping. The certainty fading. And I could see it in the way he stood there trying to hold on to something that was already gone. Take care, Adrian, I said simply, then turned and walked away. I didn't look back. Not at him. Not at her. Because I didn't need to see it again to understand it. The balance had changed. Quietly. Completely. And this time I wasn't the one losing it. I didn't think you'd actually come, Victor Langston said quietly as I adjusted my cuff and looked at the entrance ahead. I didn't come for them, I replied. Then why are you here? He asked. I paused for a second, then answered honestly, because some endings need to be seen, not imagined. He gave a small nod. Be careful. This isn't just emotion anymore. It's a stage. I looked at him. I know. That's why I'm calm. He studied me for a moment, then stepped back. Then go see it through. I walked forward without another word, each step steady, each breath controlled. The place was exactly what I expected. Luxury, perfection, people dressed like nothing could go wrong. But I knew better. I could feel it. Something was already breaking beneath all that shine. I can't do this, I heard her voice before I even saw her. I stopped just outside the main hall, my steps slowing as her words reached me. Charlotte, calm down, someone said softly. Everything is ready. That's the problem, she replied, her voice shaking. Everything looks perfect but it doesn't feel right. I stepped closer, just enough to hear clearly without being seen. You're just nervous, another voice said. It's normal. No, she said firmer this time. This isn't nerves. There was a pause. Then what is it? She didn't answer immediately. When she finally did, her voice was quieter. It feels like I'm making a mistake. Silence followed that. Heavy silence. I didn't move. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. You've already made your choice, the same voice said. There's no going back now. Charlotte exhaled slowly. That's what scares me. By the time I stepped into the hall, everything had already started. The music, the guests, the perfect arrangement of everything. I stood at the back, unnoticed at first, watching as she walked forward. Charlotte Kingsley looked exactly like she was supposed to. Elegant. Composed. But I could see it. The hesitation in her steps. The tension in her hands. Adrian Cole stood waiting, confident as always, but even from here, I could see the strain behind his expression. "You're late," someone whispered near me, but I ignored it. This wasn't about timing. This was about truth. The ceremony moved forward, word by word, step by step, until the moment came. "Do you wait?" Her voice cut through everything. Clear. Sure. Unavoidable. The room froze. Adrian turned toward her, his expression tightening. "Charlotte?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, her eyes already filling. "I can't pretend anymore." "What are you doing?" Adrian asked, his voice lower now, controlled but tense. She stepped back slightly, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry," she said, not just to him but to everyone. "I thought I could go through with this. I thought I made the right decision." Murmurs started spreading through the room. I didn't move. I didn't react. I just watched. "Charlotte," Adrian said again, sharper this time, "this isn't the place for this." "Then where is?" she asked, her voice breaking. "When was I supposed to say it? After everything is done?" He didn't answer. She looked around, then finally spoke louder. "I made a choice based on fear, not truth." The room went completely silent. "And I hurt someone who didn't deserve it." My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't need to be. I could feel it. The shift. The tension. The moment everything started falling apart. That's when I stepped forward. Slowly. Calmly. No rush, no hesitation. Just presence. Heads turned one by one until the entire room noticed. Adrian's eyes locked onto me instantly. Charlotte's breath caught as she saw me. "Logan," she whispered, barely audible, but I heard it. Of course I did. I stopped a few steps away, my posture relaxed, my expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," Adrian said, his voice tight. I looked at him. "I wasn't invited," I replied. "I just decided to come." "This isn't your place," he added. I gave a small nod. "You're right. It used to be." That landed harder than anything else. He stepped forward slightly. "You're trying to create a scene." I shook my head. "No. The scene is already here. I'm just watching it." Charlotte took a step toward me, her eyes filled with emotion. "Logan, I raised my hand slightly, stopping her. "Don't," I said calmly. "Not yet." The room felt heavier now, every second stretching longer than it should. No one moved. No one spoke. Adrian looked between us, his control slipping just enough to notice. "Say whatever you came to say," he said finally, his tone sharp. I looked at him, then at her, then back at him. "I didn't come to say anything," I replied. "I came because the truth doesn't stay hidden forever." Charlotte's eyes widened slightly. Adrian's expression hardened. "What truth?" he asked. I held his gaze for a moment, then answered, calm and steady. "The one you thought no one would figure out." Silence followed. Deep, tense, unavoidable. And in that silence I could feel it clearly. This wasn't the end. This was just the moment before everything finally came out. "You asked what truth," I said, my voice steady as I looked directly at Adrian Cole. "So let's not pretend anymore." The room stayed silent, every eye fixed on us. Adrian gave a tight smile. "Go ahead then. Say whatever story you came here to tell." I shook my head slightly. "This isn't a story. It's a pattern." He frowned. "What does that even mean?" I took a step forward, calm, controlled. "It means nothing that happened between you and Charlotte was random." A few murmurs started around us. He glanced at the crowd, then back at me. "You're reaching." "Am I?" I asked quietly. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen once. "Do you remember this meeting?" I turned it slightly so he could see. His expression changed just for a second. That was enough. "You introduced yourself to her father 3 months before you ever told me you were even talking to him." He stayed silent. "You positioned yourself as the solution to problems I didn't even know existed." I looked around the room briefly, then back at him. "You weren't falling in love. You were building access." "That's not true," he said quickly, but his voice wasn't as steady anymore. I tilted my head slightly. "Then explain the messages." I tapped again and read one line out loud, clear enough for the closest people to hear. "You said, 'Once I'm in, everything else will follow.'" The room shifted. People started looking at him differently now. "That's taken out of context," he replied. "There is no context where that sounds honest," I said. He stepped forward slightly. You're doing this because you're hurt. I almost smiled. No. I'm doing this because I'm not. That line landed harder than anything else. I turned slightly, my voice still calm. Every introduction, every opportunity, every step, you placed yourself exactly where you needed to be. I looked back at him. And I trusted you enough not to see it. Logan, Charlotte Kingsley's voice broke through, softer, shaking. I looked at her for a moment. You deserve to hear the rest, I said calmly. Her eyes filled with emotion. No. I already know I made a mistake. I shook my head slightly. You don't know how deep it goes. She froze. Adrian's jaw tightened. Don't listen to him, he said quickly. He's trying to twist things. I raised my hand slightly. You can stop now. This part isn't about control anymore. Then I looked at her again. He didn't just replace me. He studied everything about your life. Your habits. Your expectations. Even your fears. Her expression shifted, confusion turning into realization. That's not, Adrian started, but I cut him off. You told him what you needed without realizing it, I said to her. And he made sure he became that. She stepped back slightly, her breathing uneven. No. It wasn't love, I said, my tone still calm. It was strategy. The word echoed in the silence. Adrian looked around, then back at me, his confidence finally cracking. You think you're better than me now? He asked, his voice sharper. I held his gaze. No. I just stopped being blind. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted completely. The room wasn't on his side anymore. The quiet respect he once held, it was gone. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. Tell me this isn't true, she said, her voice barely holding together. He didn't answer right away. That silence said more than anything he could have said. She shook her head slowly. You planned this? He tried to step closer to her. It's not like that. She moved back. Then what is it? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't need to say anything else. The truth was already there, unfolding on its own. You built everything on control, I said quietly. And now you don't have it. He looked at me, anger replacing what was left of his composure. You think this changes anything? I nodded once. It already has. Around us, people were stepping back, distancing themselves from him without even realizing it. Conversations had stopped. Judgments had started. Charlotte covered her face for a moment, then looked at me again. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking completely now. I didn't react emotionally. I just looked at her calm. You don't need to say that to me, I replied. You need to understand why you're saying it. She nodded slowly, tears falling freely now. I didn't come here to destroy anything, I said, my voice steady as I looked between them. I came because the truth deserves to exist, whether it's convenient or not. Adrian didn't respond. He couldn't. Not anymore. Everything he built in that room, it was already falling apart. And I didn't have to push it. I turned away slowly, the tension in the room still heavy behind me. That's it. Charlotte's voice came from behind me. I stopped for a second. Yes, I said. That's it. You're just going to walk away? She asked. I didn't turn back. I already did, I replied quietly. As I walked toward the exit, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just clarity. I wasn't carrying anything anymore. Not anger. Not regret. Not questions. Everything that needed to be said had been said. Everything that needed to be seen had been revealed. And for the first time, I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward something better. Toward a version of myself that didn't need validation, didn't need approval, didn't need anyone to stay. I pushed the door open and stepped outside, the air feeling lighter than before. This is who I am now, I said quietly to myself. And this time there was no doubt in it.